Welcome to the Briefing Room, a show by Warriors for Warriors. I'm your host, Matt Bowman. I spent my life with a military ID card, first as an Army dependent for the first 18 years of my life, and then later flying jets off of aircraft carriers in defense of our country. So what is the Briefing Room? The Briefing Room is a Wednesday noon show that brings you the latest in thought leadership and updates about what's going on with our government in terms of service to nation providers, law enforcement, firefighters, and of course, our military warfighters. Today, I have a fantastic show for you. We are going to be interviewing one of naval aviation's heroes, a warrior, a decorated combat veteran, and just a phenomenal human being. But first, the news. So as I go around the world in 10 minutes or less, in the United States of America, the biggest issue facing us right now is we've entered into the 8th day of the government shutdown. Our political leaders are at an impasse, and it affects almost 1 million federal workers who've been furloughed. Some of those who are facing the challenges of being rifted, conversations about whether they'll be paid or not paid, and these things all affect millions of Americans' families. So as veterans, it's important that we're up to date on that. As those people who are affected, come to STEM City. Come to the Waves of Change conference coming up in 3 weeks to search for your next opportunity. There's a silver lining in every adversity. That's one of the first things you're taught as a warfighter. You have to find the silver lining. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Other things going on in the United States. We have National Guard folks, National Guard soldiers in Portland and in Chicago. We have articles in the Washington Post talking about the latest in VA disability and how the focus on veterans and their disability status will be a hot topic in 2026. So for all of our veterans who are applying for their VA disabilities, I want you to stay tuned to that. I'm staying tuned to it because I need to increase my disability rating as well. All right, let's go to South America. In South America, in Haiti right now, the gangs are still terrorizing Port-au-Prince. The Haitian government has worked with government contractors, including Eric Prince and Vectis Global. So they are there trying to get their arms around the things that are going on in Haiti. In Brazil, the Brazilian Supreme Court has just issued a warrant for the arrest of the former president for corruption. And that's an action there that has wide impact on all of us in the United States. And then, of course, in Venezuela. Venezuela and the United States are still at loggerheads. They are sorting through that. Diplomatic relations are at increasing tension levels. And then, of course, Venezuelan boats that are in the open ocean have been targeted by U.S. forces for bringing in drugs into the United States. In Europe, Russia and Ukraine, hot topic. Russia has just bombed Ukraine oil and natural gas facilities. Why does that matter? Well, because winter's coming. And as winter arrives, it gets super cold. I mean, unbelievably, unbearably cold, Arctic cold in the Ukraine. And so fuel in the Ukraine will be a big issue over the coming winter. You know, we're a STEM company. We're really big in science, technology, engineering, and math. And right now, the world leader in artificial intelligence is the United States. China is a nanosecond behind us. And the European Union has just put a directive and $1 billion behind European-made artificial intelligence. So everyone who's in the STEM tech world, we need to be paying close attention to what's going on in Europe. As we go down to Africa, in Ethiopia and Eritrea, they are approaching armed conflict down there. So we need to pay close attention to what's going on in the Horn of Africa. And then as we look at the continent itself, they're just wrapping up a digital government summit down in Zambia, and they're talking about ways that Africa, the fastest growing continent on the earth, can be a part of the digital revolution. Asia, the world's largest continent. So for many of us who are veterans, we retire in Thailand, the Philippines, and in Asia. Currently, there's flooding going on in 19 provinces in Thailand. It's affecting hundreds, maybe even thousands of U.S. veterans who've decided to retire in Bangkok and Phuket. So, you know, if you have service members, veterans, shipmates that are in Thailand, reach out, give them a call, see how they're doing. The other thing that's going on in Asia is China has found a source for $12 billion of US soybeans. So they are not buying the soybeans from us. They're going around the world to buy the soybeans, which is impacting American farmers. Food security is a big part of American security. And so that impacts all of us, not just the warfighters and the trigger pullers, but also those who supply us with food. The last thing that we'll talk about is Australia. Australia has just entered into a mutual defense agreement with Papua New Guinea. That's important because as China and Australia and the United States, as we vie for influence in the Pacific region, it's important that those island nations that make up the vast majority of the Pacific region are aligned with U.S. and U.S. interests. So there we go, around the world in 7 minutes. I'm now going to take a moment to recognize our sponsors and our activities that are coming up in the month of October. If you're available, come to the Waves of Change conference. And here is a commercial that tells you all about what we're up to.
What you put in to the system is what you get out. And you've often heard garbage in, garbage out. Well, an entire group of humans will have to interrogate the data in AI, or what we call training. You put the stuff in and you make sure that it is correct. AI does hallucinate. It fills in the gap. So where there is no knowledge, it will fill in that gap. And then it will remember. So bad data, bad answers continue to grow within the system. That is the power of asking the right questions and looking at a person as the whole and finding solutions, and not simply using it as a quick research tool, but actually using it as a way of augmenting to the brain and to the knowledge and to the specialty of experts.
This year, the tide is stronger than ever. For 30 years, we've been creating space for growth, innovation, and global competitiveness in STEM. From students and early career professionals to senior leaders and executives, this is where STEM changemakers gather. Join us in Baltimore for the 30th anniversary of the Waves of Change STEM Global Competitiveness Conference. 3 days of learning, networking, and shaping the future. October 23rd through the 25th, Baltimore, Maryland. Mark your calendar. Waves of Change, Oceans of Opportunity. More information at ccgmag.com/WOC.
Welcome back to the briefing room. When the President of the United States has a crisis around the world, the first thing he asks is, where is the nearest United States aircraft carrier? 4.5 acres of sovereign U.S. territory designed for one mission and one mission only, and that is to project U.S. power ashore. We do that through the Air Wing. We do that through the Battle Group. We do that through Special Forces. So today, I'm honored to have Commander Greg Magic Sawyer. We all know him, call sign Magic. He's a legend. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic. Well, listen, you know, we got the audience here. I want to jump right in it. Sir, you're a warrior. You're a combat veteran. You're a leader. You are a mentor. And we're going to talk about a lot of those things today. So for the audience that doesn't know you, I want to post the pictures and let's get right into it. You flew the A6 Intruder. You know, they make movies about this airplane. This is the backbone of the air-to-ground attack for over a quarter century. So, but how does a person get from where you're at, a man born in a small town in Florida, to flying the mighty A6 Intruder? So, tell us about your childhood.
Well, Matt, sure. Thank you for allowing me to kind of join you today. It all started with me with having a dream, and my dream started with I used to sit up and look up in the sky as a kid and see airplanes and the contrails up there and wonder, how do those things fly? You know, I know probably a lot of folks have kind of asked that question. So I was born and raised in a small town in Florida, as you said, Inverness, Florida. I went to Booker T. Washington High School, which was an all-black high school, and I see a picture up now when I was in kindergarten there with a lot of my classmates, who I actually, believe it or not, I'm still in touch with a number of them today. And when I was prior to going into high school, we had moved across the county 17 miles to a town called Crystal River. And I remember sitting up in our little black and white TV watching the moon landing. And as I saw them bouncing along the moon in their big bulbous suits, black and white TV, I said, hey, I think I'd like to do that. I think I want to become an astronaut. And my grandmother, who was sitting kind of behind me, she said, hey, boy, ain't nobody out there on the moon. That's just out there in Arizona. Okay? And but that didn't deter me. I spent the next few years kind of asking folks, hey, how do you become an astronaut? And of course, nobody had a clue. And then the summer before my senior year in high school, I had been selected for a summer math program down in Boca Raton, Florida, Florida Atlantic University, with kids from all over the country. And there was a kid there by the name of Greg from Nebraska who was trying to get into West Point. Nebraska. And he was trying to get into West Point, and I could not understand for the life of me why anybody would want to join the military. Vietnam was winding down. I had not received a draft notice, but a couple of my buddies had. And I'm going, I don't understand. Why would you want to join the military? And he told me about West Point, 4-year school, you graduate, you get a degree, and they commission you as an officer. And he said, and I think they also have a school like that out in Colorado, where same thing, you graduate 4 years, you get a degree, and then you become an officer, and then they teach you how to fly. He said, if you want to become an astronaut, you have to be an aviator. And that sealed it for me. So I came to school my senior year. I called up the enlisted recruiter and said, tell me about this place called the Air Force Academy. I want to see if I can go there. And he said, I don't know much about it. I think there's a brochure. If I find it, I'll drop it by your school, which he did. And I read up, went through the steps to apply for the academy, and I got selected as a first alternate. And I got my letter in November. December passed, January passed, February passed, and then about the middle of February, retired Navy Captain Kennedy was talking to me, said, Greg, you heard anything yet from the Air Force Academy? I said, I got a letter as a first alternate, but I think I'm just going to end up going to school in state here. And he said, would you mind if I submitted your name to Naval Academy?
Now, you must have been a pretty good student to be getting these letters.
I did pretty good. I was always fairly active. I played sports year-round, football, basketball, track and field. I was co-captain of all of my teams, sports teams. I was a merit scholar, a National Science Foundation scholar, Beta Club, Spanish Club. So I kind of was well-rounded. I was a senior class president, and I carried a 3.95 GPA.
Just a little bit well-rounded.
Yeah, so it was. I enjoyed my high school time there. So I was when he said, "Would you mind if I submit your name to the Naval Academy?" I honestly said, "Not really, Captain. I want to fly airplanes. I don't want to drive boats." I didn't know anything about the Naval Academy, and which I found out later that's even today, a lot of our kids don't know anything about other opportunities, schools like the service academies. So, and he said, well, actually, the Navy flies more tactical aircraft than the Air Force does, which is true,
That is true.
He said, and then he put the carrot out for me, and this was my carrot. And he said, besides, most of the astronauts to date have been all military and Navy and Marine Corps. And when you go to the Naval Academy, you can choose to go Navy or Marine Corps. And that sealed it for me.
I think that's still, why is it that young people don't know as much as they need, as you would think, about the service academies, and really about how the military works in general. I don't think it's changed over the last 40 years, the lack of awareness. How do we change that?
It hasn't changed very much, Matt, because I remember I got my wings in July of 1978. And I think at the time, I was the first black NFO to be selected for A6s to come out of the training command. And when I got to Oceana, there was nobody else that looked like me. They doing what I did. And that stayed that way for a number of years. We need role models. We need people who look like us, people that we can relate to. And that's not putting anybody else down or anything. I'm just saying, like for me, my first, honestly, at the Naval Academy, I saw my first black Marine, and he was a captain at the time. Okay? And I walked through the yard and I saluted him as a midshipman, and he came back with a salute. And that salute did one of these numbers like that. And I went, oh my goodness.
You're tight. You're tight.
And I started thinking, maybe I want to be a Marine.
and look, Magic, you bring up an excellent point. I mean, that, you look at classes, you have high performing students, whoever their instructors are who influence them. They might go aviation, they may go nuclear power, they may go surface warfare, they may go Marine Corps. So the role of positive, high performing role models can't be understated. So that tight salute, that yes, definitely.
I'm telling you, and the way they wore the uniforms, their overall demeanor, I was very impressed. Okay, so again, I seriously consider that was that stayed as in the back of my mind. But I still wanted aviation, and my choices would have been Navy Air, Marine Air. If I couldn't get Navy Air, I would have gone Marine Air. Okay. But I selected Navy aviation, and one of the things that I went through the flight training program. I got my wings and went on into the fleet.
Oh, whoa. Let's go back to that because, Pensacola is the cradle of naval aviation. For those in the audience who don't know, all of us that wear wings of gold, who fly Naval and Marine Corps aviation, go through Pensacola. It really is the cradle of military aviation. So talk to us a little bit about that experience, because there's so many young people who, and if you want to, you can email me at mbowman@ccgmag.com, or you can also send a text question to 352-234-0411. But many young people who are watching this, they want to be naval aviators, and they want to know, what is it like going through Pensacola physically, mentally, socially? What's it like?
Now, I'm sure a lot has changed since my time back in the 70s. But one thing that hasn't changed, it's a very demanding program, as you well know. Okay? You're going to be tested physically. You're going to be tested intellectually. Okay? You're going to go through all types of ground school, and when you finish up your ground school, and the ground school is learning about aviation. How does an airplane fly? How does a helicopter fly? You learn about the weather patterns and stuff. And when you finish up all your ground school, then you go to what we call flight side, and you actually get into the airplane and you fly. Okay? And there's a syllabus that you follow through on, and you're graded every flight. Every flight is a training flight until you get what's called a check ride, and that's your evaluation flight. And you have stages where you go through, where you train, then you get evaluated, and then you get into another stage. And I didn't realize that at the time, but one thing that I tell folks today, this is looking back, is that don't do like I did. And I mean this earnestly. I sat in my BOQ room. Later on, I got an apartment, but I sat in there and I studied by myself. Okay, pretty much by myself. Okay, that's not the way to go through the program. There are study groups. And what you want to do when you get there, you find your friends, someone, you get into the study group, because there's a lot of knowledge that gets passed around. Okay? We call it the gouge. Okay? There's an awful lot of knowledge that if you have access to that, it actually makes your journey through training a lot easier. Okay? You know about the gouge, Matt.
Listen, Greg. Tell you, I they used to say, live by the gouge, die by the gouge. I think I lived by the gouge. So it was just such an important part. And the reason why I knew it, was because of mentorship from guys like you. The same speech that you're giving to these young folks now, and the audience members, Animal gave me that speech. Chauncey Mitchell gave me that speech. H. Matt gave me that speech. So I had the benefit of being told early on to do exactly what you said. And quite frankly, you told me that. So I was able to live and do very well off of that. The other thing I was going to ask you is that camaraderie, that the rigorousness of flight school and how it builds camaraderie among all of us who go through VT10 and VT86 and also of all the training command squadrons. So can you talk a little bit about just that brotherhood and sisterhood, that fraternity of arms that develops in flight school?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, naval aviation is not, surprising to be able not, it's not all that large in totality. Okay. So when you're in your squadrons and stuff, you really do develop a closeness with the folks that you're in the war room with. But going through flight training, in fact, there were so few of us in terms of minorities, African Americans that were going through the program, that we naturally tended to gravitate toward one another. And we found that a lot of us had very similar backgrounds, okay? And we had very similar ambitions. So we were able to work together and sometimes commiserate together to share our views, to share our experiences, and we became very, very close going through there, because folks that I went through those early days, again, I'm still best friends with today. Here, almost 50 years later, we're best friends because it was just such a close knitness. When you going through there, because believe it or not, we had an organization called it wasn't there when I went through flight training, but it came back through when I came back through as an instructor. Okay, something called the National Naval Officers Association. Okay, and it was in a way an organization that allowed us.
Greg, a great association, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful association because if it wasn't for the NNOA, I don't know if we would have been able to get together and develop the cohesiveness that we did. But because of NNOA, we were able to really get together. So when I came back through as an instructor, and I'm jumping ahead, I'd gone through my fleet tour, initial fleet tour, came back as an instructor at VT10, Pensacola there. And with the NNOA, we were between main side, Pensacola, and Whiting Field, Milton, all the pilots that were going through training there, basic training. Okay, we had a group, a cadre of us that were probably somewhere around about 50 black aviators in the area at the time. And there was a lot that we were able to share, but myself and Ray Parker, Major Ray Parker, he's Marine Corps. Later, Pepper Boone, who came down as another instructor. We were, Chris Haney. There's a number of us that had gone through, done our initial tour, and had come back as flight instructors. And we were some of the first black flight instructors ever in all of aviation training. So we were able to impart our experiences and share those with those like yourself who were coming along behind us. And that was actually the genesis of the Black Aviators Network, because when I first got down there, we had an attrition rate of 65% of minorities going through the program, which was stupid crazy. Okay?
And that attrition rate, listen, the attrition, when you say that you are United States Navy 13XX, attrition comes with the territory. I mean, it is, when you talk about a crucible of performance, time compression, physical demands, social demands, that 60 to 70% attrition, I think, is what you are going to get without a support group of people who can help you along the way. And so that Black Aviator Network, I'm so glad that you all came up with that, and that you provided mentors and role models to help guide high performing students. So tell us all some more about the Black Aviator Network, the band, what it does, and how it helps people.
Yeah, so the band is an organization. Okay, it's informal, and I have to stress that. And we wanted to actually decided to keep it as an informal network for mentorship, for advising, for fellowship, and it's where you have knowledge that gets passed on behind us. Okay, each one teach one. When we first started getting together and looking at the reasons why we had all this, there was a report. And I will admit that I wrote the report of stuff that I had observed during flight in the flight training program, which I sent up to the Equal Opportunity Office up at the Annex in DC, which ended up on the CNO's desk, which ended up having the CNO dispatch his EA, Captain Byron Wiley, down to Pensacola to look at the problems that had been highlighted in the report. There was
report, I might add. I have seen that report. That is a part of military history and a part of really making naval aviation the great organization that it is today, because a lot of those changes were implemented. So go ahead, tell us about that report.
Yeah, so there were some things that were noted. For example, the swim program. Survivor Swim is a great program, but what we found that most of the African Americans who arrived at flight training didn't know how to swim, and they were being penalized. I don't know if I would say unknowingly penalized. They would start in a phase, they would get stopped because of swim. They would remain in swim until they passed that particular swim phase. By now, their other classmates have gone on. So as soon as they finish this particular swim phase, they get stuck in whatever class happens to be at that coming along. Okay? And I found that many of them, by the time they actually finished up ground school and got to flight side, they didn't know any of their classmates that they were with, because they had been 2 or 3 classes now they have been placed in. Okay? So that camaraderie with their classmates, it wasn't there by the time they got there. So the swim program was one. So teaching folks how to swim before they get to start flight training, that was one of the initiatives that the CNO set up. The other was none of them had flown before. They didn't know anything about aviation. Okay? So to introduce them to aviation, we had actually introduced introductory flights where they would come down and they would actually fly, okay? Get introduced to the environment before they started flight training. Another had to do with how they were tracked during flight training. And there's something called a Navy Standard Score that was, and I've had problems with this for as long as I can remember, because it was inherently unfair. When I talked about the gouge, I learned that the gouge was there, and if you weren't part of it, you missed out on it. And so the grades were overly inflated. And when they were saying, hey, you have to achieve a certain Navy standard score, well, if you miss 1 or 2 questions on the test, but everybody else is making hundreds because they have the gouge, it puts you well below the curve. Okay?
And Magic, for our listeners who are listening to this is how important that report is. Some people may say, oh, the swim, you're going to go fly jets. You have to swim. But in a lot of communities across this country, people don't have swimming pools in their backyard. People don't have access year-round to a pool. Those of us in Florida do, but there's large parts of America where people don't have access to a swimming pool. And so when you go to naval aviation, you could be a standout, stellar wrestler. You can be a football player. You can be a track star. When they throw you in the pool, you have to swim the Navy way. You can't just make it to the other side. You got to swim the Navy way. And oh, by the way, you can only get 3 failures in 2 or 3 years of flight school. So your first failure starts back then in the swimming pool. And you could have been, a world-class track star, whatever you want. Yes. If you don't swim the Navy way, you're going to fail. The second thing about the gouge, and this is what people who aren't in naval aviation don't know, is that it's kind of like that movie, Top Gun, where he goes, you know why they call him Iceman? Because that's how he flies. Ice cold, no mistakes. When you go through Navy flight school, it is literally a group of 16 or 17 of you going through ice cold, no mistakes. So the average score will probably be 97, 98. So if you think you're doing good by getting a 90 and you don't have the gouge and you don't have a rough idea of what the questions are going to be asked, you can stay in your room studying day and night, thinking that you're doing good with an 88 or a 90, and you are going to flunk out of flight school. If you are not in the high 90s on every single simulator, flight, and graded test, you will not make it. And that Navy standard score is designed to make sure that you are right there with everyone else, 97, 98% in everything, simulator, flight, and test. So yeah. I'm glad you raised those issues, because those are things that are on its surface, they seem fair, but once you're in it, you realize that was a process that needs to be fixed.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the band, because one of the things started was tracking the minority flight students, and we would track them throughout flight training into the fleet, mm-hmm. and provide mentorship, something that some of us never had. Provide mentorship to those young aviators, okay, as they started their career and actually as they progressed throughout the year. So over the years, it sort of became a multiplying effect, where as you go through, you reach back and you help someone else, okay? Mm-hmm. And as they come through, they reach back and help others. So that's how the band has operated.
Well, I want to thank the band. You know, everyone hears the word mentorship and they think it's kids' gloves. I think the band works more like what one of my mentors calls kick-ass mentorship. So it takes a lot.
It's unfiltered, the advice that you get.
the advice that you get will have you swallowing, you have to go cry in your beer after you get told all the things that you need to do better with your life. But it does shape you and mold you and make you a better warrior.
Here's something that I learned, and I pass this on. I was always under the impression, because no one told me, that after you finish your day, whatever that happens to be, you went home, that time was yours. Okay? So there would be events that the command would have, hails and farewells and stuff, that I did not attend. And I found out later that there was a block on the evaluation report, performance report, called organizational support. I don't know if it's still there today, but it used to be there. And I never knew what it was. I saw it. The organizational support, which was explained to me later, is, well, how well do you support your command, your organization that you're assigned to? And things like attending events, hails and farewell, participating in Captain's Cup or sporting events, or whatever the events that the command may have. Okay, you're actually conspicuous by your absence when you're a minority. Okay, and you're graded as such on how well you support the command. Well, I would get low marks in that. And again, I didn't know what it meant until it was explained to me later. So I share with others, hey, if there's a meeting, if folks are getting together at O Club, you make sure you're part of that. If they're having a golf outing, I don't care if you golf or not, you become a part of that. Okay?
That's right.
If there's a Captain Cup sport, okay, and you know that the commanding officer loves Captain Cup sports, okay, you figure out a sport to be on. I don't care if you play the sport or not. Softball, basketball, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is you want to be seen, and you want to be seen as a part of the organization, because you will be graded on it. Okay?
That's right.
So
and with that, we're going to go ahead and take a be there. Be there when you need to be there, and be there even when it's not explicitly said. We're going to go to another commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to leave a picture of you with your college band variations on the screen, and we're going to go right to a quick commercial break. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me in the chat, and we'll answer your questions. Again, I have Commander Greg Magic Sawyer here in the briefing room.
Here are 6 reasons why you should attend the Women of Color STEM Conference. 1. Meet experts and influencers. WOC attendees come from all rungs of the career ladder. While you won't necessarily meet your business idol, you will meet accomplished women who are experts in their field, one of whom might just be your next mentor. 2. Break out of your comfort zone. Sessions like the Woman to Woman, Up Close and Personal is one example of the type of event that will challenge you to look at your career in a whole new way. It is just the type of event you need to forge new ways of thinking. 3. Educational opportunities. WOC seminars and workshops offer new ideas and trends, exposure to different point of views, new ways to be more productive, opportunities to learn from others, and ways to improve skills and knowledge. 4. Networking with peers. WOC offers opportunities to mix and mingle and form new relationships. It is a valuable resource for best practices to uncover new ideas and spark inspiration when you get to know each other over coffee, lunch, or cocktails at a WOC event. 5. Position yourself as an expert. Frequent attendees to WOC are often asked to lead workshops at the conference. This goes a long way in establishing you as an expert in your field. You'll boost your reputation among your peers, clients, and employer. They'll feel good about their association with you. 6. Have fun. Enjoyment while managing career growth can be rewarding and fun. A little fun with interesting people can be very powerful.
All right, and welcome back to the briefing room. You know, we ended the last segment with be there, show up, and be seen. But the mission of the A6 Intruder is to put warheads on foreheads. So we're going to go right into your experience in combat. I mean, that's what we're here for. You know, we are the tip of the spear, and many of us have, especially now after the global war on terrorism, have so much combat time. So, sir, tell us. I want a sea story. I'm ready for a sea story. And if any of your almost, 24 plus combat missions, what most stands out? Give us so there I was.
Well, being a frontline carriers, there were a lot of military operations that we participated in and supported. Well, probably one of the most notable for my career was Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I remember Desert Storm, one of the first things that happened with our sister squadron, Saratoga. We were over in the Red Sea. When combat started, they were one of the first ones to go in country into Iraq. Unfortunately, they went in the way we always train, which is down low. They went in, but met a lot of AAA, anti-aircraft artillery, down one of their aircraft. The other one made it back, limped back to a safe area. So when my ship, I was on USS Forrestal. Kennedy. Forrestal was my first carrier, but I was on USS Kennedy flying out of the Red Sea. We had a night mission into an area just northwest of Baghdad. And I was Dash 3, alternate lead, and I remember as we went in radio silent, we were able to get into the target, release our weapons. As the first one released his weapon, he pulls off. Second released his weapon, pulls off. I was Dash 3, released weapons, pulled off, and just as soon as we were pulling up, Dash 1 first, his weapons explode, poof. Okay? And as his weapons go off, the AAA suddenly starts everywhere. Okay, so suddenly as we're pulling out, okay, all I'm seeing is red, green, blue, purple, silver. It looked like fireworks on the 4th of July. Just kind of a mesmerizing, kind of actually pretty. So this part of my brain go, oh man, that's really neat. Okay? But this part of my brain go, hey man, that stuff can kill you. Okay? But luckily we were actually flying high and flying above it. And as we pulled off, trying to not to overfly Baghdad, okay, suddenly we looked up and the sky was filled with surface-to-air missiles all over the place. Okay? I honestly don't know how many there were. I know we personally dodged about 6 of them. Okay? Fortunately for us, they were, as we call, fired ballistically. They were fired in the area toward us, but they didn't know exactly where we were. So they weren't tracking on us. They knew we were in that area.
That's right.
So we were able to dodge them. Okay. Yes, that A6 was maneuvering all over the sky. Okay. and we were able to get our flight out. No one got hit. Everybody came back to the carrier and landed. And when I got out, I was thinking to myself that everything had been nice and calm, and I was always under control. Okay? But that was not the case. When I got out and I put my flight suit on, I was soaked from head to toe from sweating that whole time. But yeah, that was a very eye-opening experience for me to go in. I mean, you know, that was one of the first, some of the first combat, opposed combat that we had been in since Vietnam. Okay.
That's right. And then and when you guys went in, Iraq's capabilities had not yet been degraded. So they had plenty of surface-to-air missiles, lots of ammunition coming off of the Iraq-Iran war. So, I mean, you guys are going in literally at the front part of that whole Iraq conflict with Saddam Hussein. So that was just incredible. And then for the people in the audience who don't know, you know, those AAA rounds, you know, everyone sees, you know, 5.56 and 7.62 rounds. It's not till you see what happens to a human or an animal or even a concrete block that when people start shooting, 20 millimeter and above, concrete walls don't protect you. Concrete walls protect you from a 9 millimeter. Concrete walls even protect you from a 50 caliber. Once you start getting into anti-aircraft munitions, the things that will do to an aviator and to an airplane, I mean, absolutely. Sir, you know, my hat is off to you. You know, the courage it takes to fly through AAA. You know, everyone that they were saying in the Army, you know, everyone wants to do hood stuff. Everyone wants to be hood till it's time to do hood stuff. And that's the same way it is for naval aviation. Sounds great, Top Gun, you know, all that, until you're flying through AAA, and then you're trying to make your way back to the aircraft carrier. So can you talk about landing in the aircraft carrier at night? Because, you know, flying Napa the Earth, talk about flying Napa the Earth, especially how y'all used to do it back then. I mean, low level, you know, 100, 200 feet off the ground, and then coming back to mom after the mission is complete.
Yeah, well, you fight as you train, okay. And how we train was, as you say, in A6s, the all-weather medium type bomber, the premier bomber in the fleet, premier bomber in the world at the time. We would fly very close to the ground. We used the terrain to mask so that the enemy's radars couldn't pick us up. And then we get close to our target, we pop up, acquire the target, release our weapons, and then get back down on the deck to egress. But coming back to the carrier, in daytime, no big deal. You got the carrier, you see it, you come in, you land. Nighttime, it's a different story. And nighttime, you come in and you look at a spot of light out there, which is the carrier. You have to maneuver behind it. Hopefully, you've got some controllers who are controlling you, putting you where you need to be at the 3/4 of a mile behind the boat, and you call the ball. And then the next thing is you're following what we call the meatball. There's a little light that goes up and down that tells you whether you're on glide path, above it or below it. Okay. And you have your landing safety officers who are talking to you on the radio, telling you if you're left or right, high or low, telling you add power and take power off. But when you come in, your heart is now. Every single night landing was heart palpitations. Okay. And here's the thing. When we went to the night carrier landing trainers, the simulators, okay, I had the same experience. I knew it was a simulator, but still coming in, simulator night landing, is that the heart rate just went up and the sweat started, and it was just one of those, it was a reflex response. Yeah. But I tell you what, if you're a adrenaline junkie, oh man, tactical air and naval aviation, you could not ask for anything more.
And I think one way it was described was it's like turning off all the lights in your living room and placing a stamp on the backside of a couch and then diving over the couch, trying to not just pick up the stamp, but to lick the stamp. And so that night carrier aviation, I agree with you, sir. Just pure, absolute adrenaline, and then you come to a stop. and then you go to either the clean or the dirty shirt wardroom and get you dinner to do it all over again the next day.
Midnight Sliders. I love it.
Nice line. There you go. Barney Clark's. Well, listen, this has been a fantastic show. I want to thank you for coming on, telling us about your experience. The show is about recruiting, mentoring, leadership. Your leadership in starting the band, your leadership in being a mentor to me and hundreds of other aviators, of all flavors who come behind you. I want to give you a few moments to say any final comments about leadership, about service to nation, and any nuggets that you have, with all your vast experience.
Matt, I just recently had my second, my brother says third, but my second retirement. I retired for the Navy back in 1997, and then I started my own business for a few years, which did quite well. Coastal Sawyer Associates. We later renamed it to CSJ Partners. And then there's a project I had that I was hired to do for a contracting company, which I came in to do it, but they decided to keep me on. And I ended up rising up through the ranks, project manager, program manager, lead subject matter expert. I stayed on there for 24 years, and I had a second retirement. And the command where I worked at, Strike Fighter Weapons School Atlantic, decided to give a lowly contractor, me, a farewell. It was kind of the first unprecedented, one of the first that anybody can ever remember that the military command gave a farewell ceremony to a contractor. But they did. It was great. I really enjoyed it, appreciate it. I'm very humbled by it. But one of the things that I told the kids that were there, they're all kids to me now, was quality performance deserves recognition.
Say that again.
Quality performance deserves recognition. So it doesn't matter whether you're purple, green, gray, black, white. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. It really doesn't matter. Okay? It's the performance that counts. So when you're in a position of leadership, your job is to make sure that the people who you're leading, okay, have everything they need in order for them to do their job as expeditiously and professionally as they can. That may mean more equipment. It may mean more training. It may mean more bodies. Okay? It may mean less bodies. Okay? But your job is to evaluate all of that and make sure that they have, because see, here's the key. Okay? And one of my mentors, Captain Charlie Tompkins, deceased, but Charlie Tompkins was a great guy. Charlie taught me that they don't work for you. You work for them. Okay? So when you're in a position of leadership, you're working for them to make sure that they have everything that they need. So when you're evaluating people, you evaluate them based on their performance. Okay? Nothing else. You have a set of objectives that you want to achieve, and you achieve it. You have to be role models, though, because you need to be someone that they can look up to. So understand that you will always be a role model. Always. Because even today, there are less than 5% Black African Americans that are in the military, particularly in the Navy. Less than 2% in aviation. So the numbers have not changed very much over the last 45 years or so that I've been associated with. So being a role model, going out there, getting to the high schools, getting to the grade schools, which is something that band does great. And every 2 years, we have a Black Naval Aviators reunion. We've got one coming up in November here. Okay. We started in 1996 by a group of guys who said, hey, we need to get together. Okay, and then we need to get out into the community so that the community can see us. They can see that we have active duty aviators, we have airline pilots, we have folks who ferry goods and services like FedEx and stuff. We've got retirees and reserve folks. We've got business leaders, business owners. So we get out and we try to share that with the community wherever we are, and that's actually 365, 24/7.
Wow. Well, you know, Magic, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to wrap up your segment with the words of our mentor, Charlie Tompkins, which is, they don't work for you, you work for them.
Work for them.
And with that, I think that Becoming Everything You Are, Stars and Stripes, captures that. The Black Aviator Network captures it. These are all tools for any young American to be a part of, and to come learn from and to grow from. So with that, I want to thank you for being on the show. And
Yes, sir.
we're going to go to commercial. Commander Greg Magic Sawyer, folks. It's been a pleasure. He's on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions for him or I, put them in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Magic.
Hi, STEM professionals. I'm Eric Price, Vice President of Recruitment and Training here for Career Communications Group. Our conferences have something for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. Let's say, for example, you are a new college student, need some soft skills to learn. Guess what? We can help you there. If you're an existing professional who's looking to rise up the corporate ladder, we got you covered. Our remarkable thought leaders will introduce you to out-of-the-box thinking, develop your existing professional skills, and expand your leadership skills. My name is Eric Price, and I'm Vice President of Recruitment and Training here at Career Communications Group, and you can contact me either by calling our headquarters office at 410-244-7101 or via email at eprice@ccgmag.com. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, welcome back to the briefing room. My name is Matt Bowman. I'm your host. And on October 13th, the Navy will celebrate its 250th birthday. Since the founding of our nation's Navy and since the founding of our republic, Black veterans have participated in defense of the nation from Crispus Attucks all the way up to today. And so the tapestry of American history is written and woven and includes all of us, all of the Americans, men, women, Black, white, Jews, Gentiles, and Protestants have served this nation to defend it. So as we get ready to wrap up, I want to highlight one of the forgotten heroes, General Robinson. He's not Navy, but we are purple here. We recognize all of our services. General Robinson was the first African-American four-star. He was from St. Louis, Missouri. He was a graduate of United States Military Academy at West Point and truly a pioneer and a warfighter. This show is by warfighters for warfighters. And so as you add the books of great warfighters that you should follow, I highly recommend General Robinson. He was an infantryman, a rifleman, served in both Korea and Vietnam, recipient of the Bronze Star, Silver Star, just an all-around warrior. When you look at the 82nd Airborne, which after United States aircraft carrier, one of the next questions that a president would ask is, where is the 82nd Airborne? He was the first African-American to command the 82nd Airborne Division. That is no small feat. If you go to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and if you wear combat boots, you know what the 82nd Airborne represents. It represents American power. It represents boots on the ground, and territory cannot be taken without soldiers, Marines, combat ground sailors, and airmen, and Coast Guard men going onto the ground. So we want to wrap up today's show. General Robinson is our forgotten hero today, who each of you should research. Now, I can't wait till next week. Next week's show will be focused on veterans. So all of you who are in the veterans process, whether you're applying for service-connected disabilities, you want to tune in. We're going to bring some of the world's best experts in how do you file a claim, how do you process a claim, and more importantly, How do you transition from out of the uniform and into your next adventure? So with that, I'm going to sign off for the briefing room for this week's show, a show by Warriors for Warriors. Matt Bowman out.
Sometimes we don't even know what we don't know, and we don't know who we can talk to. But it's organizations like this where you can have those conversations so that you don't feel isolated. What do I need to know to get there? Okay, I went to college, I got the degree, I got a master's, or I got a PhD. How do you make certain that you know what you're supposed to do and how to navigate a corporation within? That's huge. That's huge. Sometimes we don't have a family member in our circle. Sometimes it's somebody that we knew 5 years ago who can bring some information to the table. We have to be able to dial a number with people that we know understand what we may or may not be going through, or what we need. So if you're getting a PhD, but you didn't know that you also needed to do something else or not, who's there to be able to talk to you and help you navigate your career? People who've already had that experience that you can just call up and say, I just had this experience and it didn't feel good. And somebody's there to talk you through it. Life isn't always easy in corporate America, but you've got to build your circle.
This year, the tide is stronger than ever. For 30 years, we've been creating space for growth, innovation, and global competitiveness in STEM. From students and early career professionals to senior leaders and executives, this is where STEM changemakers gather. Join us in Baltimore for the 30th anniversary of the Waves of Change STEM Global Competitiveness Conference. 3 days of learning, networking, and shaping the future. October 23rd through the 25th, Baltimore, Maryland. Mark your calendar. Waves of Change, Oceans of Opportunity. More information at ccgmag.com/WOC.